Hey Mo,
Hey Ricky, how you doing?
I'm good. The doctor is in.
Yes, yes, the doctor is in with a subject that is long, long overdue.
I
We are talking,
know.
yeah, it's going to be a good one
Hey,
today,
how you doing?
because
I'm good. The doctor is in.
when you look at the data surrounding Black women, we lump Black and brown women together, right? And it's always sort of Black and brown women have this, they have that, and how we experience breast cancer, the visibility of that, the incidence and the mortality actually is a little bit different. You'd be surprised to know that that Latina women experience, or that the incidence of breast cancer is actually lower compared to,
Lower. Yeah,
right,
it's lower.
compared to white women, but the mortality is higher. And that's what we got to talk about, the survivorship, the experience that these women have. And so we got some really great guests today to really speak to this.
We do. We have two great guests, and one more is coming. And there are some great friends that I met. I try to find friends everywhere. You guys, you know that. I suck you into my family, right? But I met Veronica. Actually, I met her a couple times, but Veronica is one of our buddies at Genentech. And we actually spoke on a cancer moonshot panel together in the spring. That was really, really cool. And she is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scientist doing amazing, amazing work. And then I met Lydia a couple of weeks ago. I met her family at Ubiquitous. And I'll let her tell you the story of how we're connected. But I met her family, and her family told her about us, and she came on our last Touch Talk, which is great. And then we have Liz, who's coming on soon, and she actually is a doctor at Mayo Clinic, and she's a Latina. But it's Hispanic Heritage Month. We're trying to honor our Latina breasties, and we have never had this conversation before. And the data that I saw was, Latinas have a 30% higher mortality rate than white women, and so I think also there's all these other barriers to care, and just in terms of how you guys are culturally different in terms of how you talk to doctors, how you interact with doctors in the medical community, and how you talk to your families about health. It's a different it's sort of that superhero woman conversation that we have as Black women, but I think it's a little different. And then just the language barriers you encounter in dealing with healthcare and dealing with the ecosystem. So let's talk about it. And let's talk about how I actually did an interview with Salud America a few months ago. Maybe it was even last October. And it's so funny because the questions they were asking me were, like how I'm asking you, like about a lot about Latinas. They were asking me about Black women, which is, kind of crazy because we're all of color and we all are sisters. So let's unpack it. What can we tell our audience just to learn more about, how the disease is different and how we can all help each other fight this fight, as we all are fighting this fight like a girl. So I would love for you to tell your story, Veronica.
Yes, no, well, first, thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Dr. Mill, for inviting me and allowing Genentech to be here with Lydia, who has an amazing story to share with everyone who is listening in. As Ricky mentioned, my name is Veronica Sandoval. I am a first-generation Mexican American from California. I grew up in a rural town in Southern California, primarily a town of migrant workers, right? So when you are talking about that cultural language barriers and how the Latina women and Latinos in general, they see doctors and how they communicate, and when I was growing up, now California, you could find doctors that speak Spanish for the most part, or they have assistants that speak Spanish. But when I was growing up, that did not exist. So I was a, child who was learning English as a second language. And, my mom took me to the doctor's appointments, just talking about that huge gap of, healthcare disparities there. A 7-year-old translating to a doctor what my mom was feeling, right? And that on its own should, I hope that is shocking people, because a child who is 7 should not be translating medical terminology or symptoms, for that matter, to a doctor who my mom was trying to get healthcare. Breast cancer and all cancers, are personal because my family has, you talk about cancers in Latinos, it's the #2 killer for the Latino community. Breast cancer is up there, but let's even talking about cancers that are preventable, that shouldn't be taking place. And I know we're focusing on cancer, but cervical cancer in women, in Latina women, is another killer in our community. And it comes all, Ricky, with talking about the issue. So I applaud you for having this conversation, because Latina women, and Lydia, would love, for you to talk about this as well. Talking about our health is a taboo. We do not talk about our bodies, especially, when we're talking about breast and the cervix, you're like, whoa, stop right there, as a scientist, going through graduate school, and I would come back, and I still talk to, my sister, my mom, my cousins, my grandma, and they're like, wait a minute, don't go there. What are you talking about? So just the fact that we could have these conversations, and even more, what is it that we as Latina women should be asking our doctors? Why,
Yeah.
if we do find a lump, what is it? Do we ignore it? What do we do? Health insurance is another big issue, that
Mhm.
we are underinsured or uninsured, or, then it's the fact of, let's not even put the layer of documentation.
Mhm.
So our community truly is a mix, and even, I'm a Mexican American. So when we are speaking about Latinos, it's a melting pot, right? The way that a
Yeah,
Mexican American speaks is different than what our Latin
right.
American from other countries are speaking. So
I was just going to say that. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
yes. So, so I would love for us to have a real talk, for me to provide you that industry perspective, let you know what Genentech is doing as far as clinical trials, clinical trial representation, patient advocacy, which we love, Ricky, for all the work that you do. But what else can we do? So I would stop there and turn over the floor so I don't hijack this conversation.
No, but it's a good hijack though, because
Yeah,
you're right. And the difference is that the experience of Latinos across the diaspora is very different, whether you're in Puerto Rico or Mexico, whether you're in the US, whether you're in East Coast, even West Coast or Midwest. And so speaking to all of those things and the needs of the community, and talking about things like screening, access to care,
right.
and even just describing and discussing our bodies, that's not so different from the Black community. I grew up, we called it a cookie. I think my grandmother called it a box once. She called them, all sorts of euphemisms for our body, because we're sort of ashamed to talk about these things. And it's the things that we're not talking about that really are killing us. And so I just applaud the work that you're doing, and agree with you. We have to push the needle in all the different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, the insurance obstacle is so huge, I think, for everybody. But just the undocumented issue is huge. Like, how do you get care? How do you get health care? And especially when you have cancer, for God's sakes, like, how do you even do that? But Lydia, tell your story. I think your story is going to illustrate a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, girlfriend, right? My
Absolutely.
new breasty sister. I love you.
Thank you for welcoming me. I am super honored, and I'm so excited that I can actually be part of this. It touches deep in my soul because I've seen many ladies giving testimonies at church and things like that, what things they go through, and I literally visited most of my life all Latino churches, Latino experience. I am from Puerto Rico, born in the United States. My whole family is bilingual. We all speak both languages. A lot of taboos, of course, follow my family as well. And just like everybody else, between the cookie and other words that we give our body names, it's so hard to speak, and especially if something is going wrong because right away you take that burden on you, like it's my fault that I got sick. I personally got sick. Mine was our triple negative ductal carcinoma, very normal. But my problem was that I was switching jobs. I had worked my 28 days. The same day I found my small little nub on the side of my breast, it was like the size of a pea, literally, probably even smaller, like a little rice of corn, a little piece of corn. And I had literally just been worked that Friday. It was a Saturday. What am I gonna do? Schedule a mammogram in a matter of 3-4 hours was my last day of insurance. So
Wow.
I had to reckon, I had to pray. And the first thing was, Lord, this is nothing. This is just the same little nudge that grew one on my thigh. They'll take it out. It'll be fine. It's just nothing. But that sucker kept growing and there was no stopping it. I started my new job. My breast is starting to hurt at night. It went from not hurting to hurting. I couldn't get anybody. I would call the free mammogram bus. I would call Planned Parenthood. Can you help me? So many different ways. I called friends who had contacts. Nobody could help me because I was hired already. I needed to wait 60 days for my insurance to start. In those 60 days, the cancer grew from the size of a pea to the size of a golf ball. At that moment, it was so much pain that you would feel the whole pain grabbing your chest, my arm, my back. It would compress against my body if I laid on it. I had to put ice packs on my breast and under my arm. On the 60th day, I already had called an oncologist. I already had made, her name is Lisa. She's in Arizona. All of this is going on in Arizona. Let me let you know, our family is not from Arizona. I was completely alone. My sister had left, Jessica, the one Ricky met. My niece already had left. She was in plans to get married. So many things had happened. I was alone. All I had was my best friend, and she couldn't do much. She had her own problems she had to take care of, but I kept it to myself, which is what's the scariest part. Every Latina needs to know the moment you feel something, go get it checked. I can personally speak. I have another member of the family who went and got checked. The cancer is out of her system. Now, she did have to go through some little radiation, but it didn't get to a stage 4 like it happened to me. I had to wait 60 days in order to even know if I had cancer. By then, I think all the arrows have pointed to yes. But by then, I was a nerve wreck. I had accused myself. I was drowning. I thought I have 2 daughters. One was finishing high school. The other one was in 4th grade. What was I gonna do? I was a single working mom. My date or my boyfriend left me 2 weeks before I got my diagnosis. So that was in the middle of, I want to say, June. That person walked out. It was none of their problem. They weren't ready to deal with someone who's going to get breast cancer. He felt it, as a matter of fact, but some people are so scared. There needs to be some more education out, more ways to orient, especially the Latino community, because I've heard of many moms that by the time that we came to know that something was wrong, because she felt she had to be the patriarch of that family and carry every one other child's problems to herself, nobody knew she was sick until the end. And then it was too late. And that's where I'm scared of. If I had to wait that time and I thought I had money and resources, or at least to get somewhere, imagine there's people that are not even half as the way I was. And my ferocity, my anger, my I want to get to all those people who need to help. If I need to call 500 doctors for you, I'll do it. But let's make sure that we spread the word out, because we're not going to get anywhere letting these ladies keep it quiet because, oh, I got to be strong for my family. Your family needs you alive. And I really hope everybody hears it. A todas las Latinas, all of my sisters Latinas, Afro Latinas, American Latinas, de El Salvador Latinas, de abajo Hispana, everywhere. If you cannot get the message through, find someone to get the message through to the doctor. Find it. There's ways to get, even if it's a trial, start it off that way. At least they can stop it. They can slow down the process. Sometimes there is medicine for hormonal cancer. Some ladies don't know this. You can start the pills without having to do the chemo and control your hormones. Mine wasn't like that. I had to stop what I was eating.
It's triple negative, yeah.
Yeah, I was triple negative. It was what I was putting in my mouth, and I didn't know. The moment I stopped eating vegan, that's when that cancer grew again. So they kicked me out of the study. There's nothing they could do. The medicine wasn't working for me. So then they had to take me out. Now, the hospital did take care of me after that, because I made sure, I'm like, am I part of this trial? Do I need to stop and run to another doctor if you guys can't help me? No, it was an awesome, I can give the information to where I went to, in private, but there is a way out. I did get a double mastectomy because I felt that it was easier to keep myself in one uniform shape. I didn't think it was normal for me to just have one. Everybody has their own preference. It doesn't matter. And there's so many prostheses and so many stickers and things you could put on. There's so many ways out of this. So that part is the least of it. Make sure that when you feel sick, you take care of it. It's better to take a Tylenol than a chemo pill. Straight up. I don't want the chemo pills. I was at the point that after I took regular chemo, the Red Devil's injection, because I had that one too, that red liquid. I had the radiation liquid stuff. All of those ugly things I had in my system. After that, I had to go to a month and a half of radiation. That was 6.5 weeks of radiation. It was like a heart. They were drawing a heart on my chest completely. And it was still so strong that they had to put me on pills after that, because the surgery, they were scared. It had spread so much. It had inflamed so much of my underarm, so many lymph nodes. They removed 36 lymph nodes, and out of those 36, 6 of them had cancer. My process was pretty serious. That's another thing I would love to touch. Family members that don't understand what you're going through, it's okay to step aside. People will step aside, and that's fine too. They can't handle it. Sometimes it's because the love for you, they never thought that you would get sick, that they could have a chance to lose you, and they don't know how to handle with that situation. They don't know how to handle that. So whenever you know that those people are walking away, is because God's putting other people in front of you who have the strength. So don't take it personal. They'll come back when you're okay, when you don't need them probably, but then you will testify why, what happened. Oh, I went through all this, and God's gonna get you through it. Go ahead, Ms. Ricky.
No,
You keep
been
reading
asking-
today. Whoa.
I know, whoa. But so
Awesome.
where are you now with your cancer? You're good? Are you?
I am
Where are you?
cancer-free. I am cancer-free. I'm on 4 years remission.
Thank God.
Every Christmas, because I had to
Thank
take
you,
pills a
God.
little bit longer than I thought. Every Christmas, I celebrate another year. So this Christmas will be my 5th year without. Wait, what am I doing? 2018. Yes, it'll be my 5th year. I got sick in 2018. May of 2018, May 3rd, I found that little lump. And from May to June, the cancer grew from a pea size to a golf size, to a golf ball in 2
5
months.
years is a big deal. It is a big
Yeah.
deal. Speaking of cancerversaries, happy cancerversary to you, Ricky Fairley, right?
Today,
11.
I'm
That is so
11.
awesome.
Wow.
11 years today.
Lydia, you touched on so many things. We're going to circle back to the family and the support system, but let's talk about representation in clinical trials. By the numbers, how are we doing in the Hispanic community, in the Latino community with clinical trial participation?
I'll jump in. Not well. I always like to share the statistics, right? When we look at the US population, where is the US population? Latinos make 18% of the US population. Yet you look at clinical trials, less than 1% of Latinos are participating. Yeah, and when we are talking about, when I was listening to Lydia, even the treatments available, Lydia, and doctors trying to figure out what is going to be the right medication, doctors default to clinical trial data. They default to that demographic that the medication was tested in. And unfortunately, our Latino community, as well as our Black communities, are not well represented. And it goes back, to education. There is, a lot of that there is this mistrust. We could have an entire hour just discussing what happened, what is it that made this distrust? Well, pharma was never truly very transparent, being, Lydia, you are from Puerto Rico. Right. There is that, famous Puerto Rico study with sterilization of Puerto Rican women, right? Where pharma came and said, oh, take this pill, it's going to prevent you from getting pregnant. It wasn't just that pregnancy, right? It sterilized Puerto Rican women. Yes, and when we are trying to rebuild this trust, now I'm at Genentech. I sit in the Chief Diversity Office, and I'm specifically leading our efforts in patient inclusion and health equity, and leading our efforts in how do we represent and have our Latino community understand what clinical trials mean, why do we have to participate, and the importance of making sure that the products that we have work in a diverse population besides, women who are white, men who are white. Even when scientists are thinking about, well, let's think about what are we targeting, for a new medication? The data that our scientists have is 90% from a genetic ancestry from Caucasian, backgrounds. So again, we don't have a whole lot there. The NIH, with all of us, is trying to change that. The NIH is trying to bring and say they want to have 1 million representatives. So everyone out there who's listening to me, consider it. Google all of us. Find a site that is near you. And the NIH is actually, giving, it's a better than the the genetic testing, I forget the name, that you pay for to get your genetic test and ancestry. NIH does this. They give you your genetic makeup for free as a participant of all of us. And even better than the commercial available testing, they keep that data and they go to major, strengths of keeping your data private. They're not selling it. But what is giving the opportunity for all of the scientists is to have a diverse genetic database where we could truly have asked the questions. Why is it that medication responds differently with triple negative cancer in Black women or Latina women? We could start answering those questions. And even when we're talking about, the clinical trial representation, I've heard it from my family with COVID. COVID is a perfect example. When I was like, you should go and get that COVID vaccine, especially because diabetes runs in our family. My family was like, no, I don't want to be a guinea pig. Let's wait and see how others react. We need to change that mentality in our communities. Because as Lydia was sharing, clinical trials are part and should be part of the treatment that we are getting. And we need to start feeling empowered and asking our clinicians what clinical trials are available, especially in breast cancer. Because one of the things that clinical trials offer is that they're giving you an entire team of experts. And you're having
a better standard of care.
Yes, and the standard of care and more, you know, Ricky, and I'm glad that you brought that point up because that truly enhances the experience, not only the experience that you're getting, but the specialty care that you are getting.
Right.
So, you know, that is something that I think all of us should, you know, discuss and really make sure that, you know, there's many different organizations that can provide patient navigation that allows you in Spanish. You have the promotoras that can help you walk you through this. You have various organizations like even the Share Cancer Support Group that they have bilingual materials. They
Right,
can help
right.
us understand, you know, what else can I do? Where do I go? Genentech, you know, we have our patient foundation that even if you're not in a clinical trial, but you need a drug and you cannot afford it, we do not ask for social securities. We do not ask for legal status. You apply and Genentech can provide the drug for free. So
Wow.
all of these are resources that are available.
That's so great. That's so great to hear. And Liz just joined us. Hey, Liz.
Hi, everyone.
you,
So happy to
Liz.
be here. I'm
glad
just so
you're
excited
here.
for this moment.
So here, I'm gonna speak to, I'm gonna let you speak in just a second. I was just gonna respond to you, to Veronica. You know, we've worked really hard on whenwetrial.org. Thank you with such great help from Genentech. And I'm gonna play our video in a minute because I want you guys to see how we can maybe translate that or make it more relevant to Latinas, because we really want to do that. But what we learned in our research and we learned in the work that we've done is that the message coming from a breastie is so much more powerful than coming from a doctor or a health professional. That when the breasties break it down for you, and we're hearing the same things, you're going to get the sugar pill and die. I don't want to be a guinea pig. You know, I have bad history, the earned medical mistrust. All those arguments are still are happening in the Black community. And we're trying to do them by educating in very, very simple terms. And some of the things that are working are, you know, that Advil you took last week, well, guess what? It was in a clinical trial. Or that heart medicine you gave your dog was in a clinical trial. But really and even just explaining what standard of care is. There is no sugar pill in cancer research. You're going to get a drug. And guess what? Because of the level of care you're getting in a trial, you may not have to wait 3 months to get a scan to see what's going. You probably are going to get scanned in a month and see what's happening. And actually, my latest argument I've been using, you know, we've been on the road now for 15 events, is everybody's buying the iPhone 14. I'm not, but iPhone 14, like you're buying a iPhone 14, you want the M1 Mac computer. Like if you don't have a Tesla, you want one. So you're buying all the science in your life, right? You're buying science. It's all around you. The best TV, the best phone, the best, all the stuff, right? The best stuff in your kitchen, whatever you have, you're buying all the science. Why wouldn't you buy science for your body? And frankly, for triple negative and Black women, and I'm seeing the same thing for Latinas, that, you know, the best alternative is a clinical trial, because you're going to get a better standard of care, more attention, and you're going to get the best science available. And I'm hoping that people start to look at this as a first option. It's not a last resort. It's not when you're metastatic. Right. It's what are your treatment options up front? And we know that doctors are not inviting us. And I'm sure
and
that's
for early stage disease, Ricky,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
disease.
yeah, early stage disease as well.
Exactly. Early stage disease, because we don't have anything for triple negative, you know, we're so limited. So like do the trial up front and not only help yourself save your life, but, you know, maybe save some other lives and help our community just understand science better. So all that stuff is, you know, but we got on this bandwagon about clinical trials, Liz, talking about how important it is for, you know, all of us to participate. But I'm going to pause and give you a minute to tell your story.
Hey, Liz, welcome.
Thank you. I feel right at home. This video is great. My students at the medical school are raving about it. It really hits home. So tune in.
Or do you want to show? Well, why don't you tell your story and then we'll show the video.
Oh, my story is I'm here for the cause. This is real day life. We're here because this is what we see day in and day out. We see breast cancer continuing to affect women in disproportionate ways. It's having an impact on our communities of color. A little bit about me is I'm Mexican, I'm first generation. I am a specialist. I find your breast cancer with pictures. I'm a radiologist, but I also do your biopsy. So I'm the one that does the procedure to send the tissue sample to get evaluated by a pathologist to get your diagnosis. I also see patients as they're undergoing clinical trials. They come to me because part of the protocol is to see, is it shrinking? Is it getting better? Is it coming back? All of that. So I'm part of that. And I'm there for the day you go to surgery. If you're having breast conservation, usually I'm doing a procedure to help your surgeon localize, find the area to remove at the time of surgery. I'm there when you're doing your survivorship. I'm part of your team. I can't do my job without the primary care doctor sending you to me, without working with my surgeons, without working with the chemotherapy, oncology doctors, radiation. I can't do my job, but I'm also there for you as a patient. I'm there for your families. I'm there in the room when I'm sharing a diagnosis of breast cancer. I'm there in the room when I say, you know what, I'd like to do another biopsy because I want to make sure your other breast is okay. I'm there for every step of that journey. I have worked in private practice in underserved communities for over 5 years. And then for another 5 years, I worked in academic centers. I've seen breast cancer care throughout that entire spectrum. When it comes to our topic today of how it impacts the Latinx community, it's pretty major. When I did private practice, it was mostly in Arizona, which is considered a border state. So we have a lot of movement of our patient populations. And so I was overseeing a breast cancer center where most of my patients didn't speak English. About 80% were Spanish speaking only, and they didn't have insurance. And on top of that, they were moving. They were going back to Mexico. They were going to California. They were going to Nevada. And it was just seasonal work. They're frontline workers, seasonal work. So many of my patients didn't come through screening. They weren't there for a screening mammogram. Why go looking for problems? We're trying to figure out how to just make it. They're the head of the household. They've got things to do. They were presenting to me because they felt something, or they could no longer do their job. They had oozing from the breast and they couldn't lift. So by the time I saw them, they had aggressive or advanced stage breast cancer. And while the studies show that Latinx patients, women tend to get, women and men, because we know that 1% of men in this country get cancer, the frequency, the incidence is lower in the Latinx community. We still know that the Latinx patients are still dying of breast cancer. They're still presenting at an age they're still presenting at an advanced stage, and they're presenting at a much younger age. So I think my youngest patient was like 18 years old, happened to have a triple negative. We have to do better, and we can't do better unless we know better. And that's what I love. This is like my most important talk of the whole year, is because this is where the magic happens, is connecting and coming together as a community and having conversations where we're exchanging ideas, empowering each other, so that as a unit, we can be bold and forward and cure cancer. That's the goal. And part of that is the clinical trials. When we look at breast cancer care, and we consider it as a puzzle, there's multiple pieces of the puzzle. One of the big pieces of the puzzle that makes that picture come together is clinical trials. And so why can't that be for you and me? Why can't that be for our communities? Why not? And so we're changing that whole narrative. We're changing the conversation by having moments like this. And that's why I'm here today. And I think that'd probably be a great segue to your video, Ricky.
Thank you for the setup. Thank you for all that insight. And you know, there's so many similarities to the Black community, but let me play the video. And we've played it, like, I think once or twice on the show, but I guess it's never enough, right? To tell the story and help us figure out how we can make this work for, you know, for Latinas, and figure out a pathway for them to have this opportunity. 1 second. You guys keep talking for a second while I tee this up.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to point out that I'm sure have already been shared by my colleagues is additional barriers for the Latinx community is language. And that applies not to just to our community, but others as well, is language, the fear of not having, of not being documented, the fear of costs, and that affects all of us. You know, is my insurance even going to pay for this? Do I even have insurance? We know that the Latinx community is twice as likely to not have any insurance of any kind. And there's not a real true appreciation. So when I would give a diagnosis to my Spanish speaking patients, and I would say, this came back as cancer, I'd like to go ahead and refer you to a surgeon. We're going to put a team together. We're with you. There's still this idea that breast cancer is a fatal diagnosis. There's still this idea of just hearing the word cancer, that's it, game over. And the idea of having a conversation of, no, your cancer is, we caught it small enough. We know how to treat this. Going from no trust in the community to giving that diagnosis to building trust with the community and say, follow me, I will walk with you, let me show you, there is a way. It requires a lot of intentional investment. And we need more people that are passionate. We need more people that are going to go into our communities and do this work. And like Veronica was saying, the promotoras are a huge, important aspect of this important work.
Yeah, great. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it.
When we trial, we make a difference in breast cancer research.
When we trial, we save Black lives.
When we trial, we defy the odds.
When we trial, we do it for our sisters.
When we trial, we do it for our daughters and our sons.
When we trial, we set a new standard of care.
I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer.
I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer at 19 years old.
I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer at 38.
All you hear is cancer, cancer, cancer. You never think about what the doctor's saying.
Then the doctor looked at me and he said, "Did you hear what I said?" And I said, "Yeah, but I don't know how to be a breast cancer patient."
The numbers for Black women are devastating. Black women have a 41% higher mortality rate than white women. Black women have a 39% higher recurrence rate than white women. Black women get triple-negative breast cancer, the worst one, at 3 times the rate of white women. So we're getting breast cancer younger at later stages and earlier ages, and it's just devastating. It's unacceptable.
I know my grandma had it and she beat it, and so I just knew that was gonna be me as well.
So I think then my fight started was when I realized, okay, I'm up for the fight for my life. So she said, well, you know, I got this good clinical trial. You can go on it as a second phase. And she said, I think it'll work for you. But the first thing I asked her was like, am I gonna be a guinea pig? You know, because of our, you know, history with the Black culture.
Over the years, clinical
Oh, did I lose you guys?
I'm still here.
Still here? The video's buffering. I guess it'll catch up in just a second. At least you guys are still here.
I think it would be incredible, and I don't know that I've seen anything quite like this for the Latinx community, and it would be amazing to see. I mean, my
for
patients.
many African Americans have been hocus pocus. So we know about Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks.
Clinical trial is no longer a dirty word. It is, it's a halo opportunity. It's a message from God. It's an opportunity for you to live past this moment.
But we need to get more African Americans into clinical trials because we are dying at alarming rates and we have to stop this. We really do.
And right now, there's only a 3% participation rate in clinical trials. And so even the drugs that we're making now, there's no Black bodies being tested. As we built when we tried really hard to make it for breasties, by breasties, about breasties, so people could see themselves in what we're doing.
Clinical trials are important. This is top-notch research that we need to have as a Black community.
It's like a butterfly effect. We all got to help each other out in one way to get to the ultimate end goal.
And I think the onus is on us that are cancer survivors to tell the story. And the least that we could do is be on a trial. But how about for your children? And for your children's children? We got to do this thing. We got to save lives. It's just that important.
Representation matters.
Yeah. We thank Genentech for helping us do that work.
That's a fantastic.
So stressed and overwhelmed that you feel.
It cracks me up that we're now getting ads on YouTube on our video. But yeah, so I mean, I want to figure out how to make this work, you know, and tell the Latina story. Give some tools, because I think none of us can talk about this too much, right?
And I think stories of survivorship too, you know, like Dr. Valencia said, there is this sort of fatalistic impression that people have that I guess this is it for me. But when we look at, you know, how we talk about breast cancer for Black and Brown communities, speaking about it in terms of our survival and modeling that survivorship like Lydia is doing is so important. And I don't see enough in my surgical practice. I don't see enough of that information. I don't see enough support groups and circles that are really welcoming and affirming, and that representation just isn't there on the survivorship side of things. So I think, you know, Ricky, even how touch is so impactful in showing and sharing the stories of breasties who are thriving, right? Like that equivalent, I think we need to see it.
Yeah.
I love that idea of flipping the script and centering it on our patients, on their journey. And I agree. In my experience, whether it's private practice or academic, no matter where I have been, we don't elevate or lift up the voice of survivorship enough. And I think that if we flip that script and we center our message on patients and allow them to be the voice, like we're doing with breasties, that may be what ignites this movement, because we can be as persuasive as we like to try to lead our community to options, but there's always this sense of, does it apply to me? There's always this sense of, you know, what's the catch? there's why should I trust you? And there's so much information coming at people. If there's a way for us to better connect people that have gone through it, that have lived it, that can be like, I'm okay, this is how it helped me. If we can create a community, if we can take the current community that Touch is doing and just expand it out to all our other communities, including Latinx and all the other underserved communities, that would be powerful, because it's gonna take a village. It's gonna take our community, not even a village. It's gonna take a community. It's gonna take us together to really get some traction on this.
It really is. And you missed Lydia's story, but I think, Lydia, do you feel like you have enough resources in your community to get this message out in the way, or to have these conversations? Like,
The only way I would know to right now, it would be through social media, any outlet at that form of that source, because particularly I secluded myself. I was very personal with my things, and I only had a small circle of friends. The problem was the resources weren't there. I didn't know where to run to, or I felt out of place because of who I represent. I represent Latinas in this place, so in this earth. So as it is, I am a very happy, hyper person. And so I seem to attract a lot of attention at times. So to me, it was more like, oh my God, I'm not going in there to ask for anything. I'll prefer to call before I go in there personally. And just the fear, because the way we're brought up, we don't talk about our faults. We don't talk about what we're hurting about. We don't talk about any of that. That's how my grandmother, my mom, till the other day, I didn't know my mom's knee hurt. Something's going on. You know what I mean? No, but they don't want to tell you, because right away, everybody's going to worry. No, I need my kids to focus. It's encrusted into our beings of the way Latina mothers are. Same way as Black women. We care about our children. We're not going to give them something else to worry about. We got other things to worry about, like Liz was saying. I have to worry about how to bring the bread to my table. I don't need them to worry about, I need to take a Tylenol, but the Tylenol doesn't cure the cancer or anything, or even if it's just teaching people how to eat better. Nowadays, we have the lack of I want to say how to eat. It just doesn't work. We put too many things. Back in the day, yeah, there was a lot more organic. We grew our own things. That's how I was raised. I was raised by what was growing up on the ground. And when I got older, I started eating the wrong things. I was in a clinical trial and I got treated A+. I would never, ever, ever put a clinical trial down. It was saved my life. Wow. It was hard. I had the moments that I had to cry and ask God to help me, because I thought I was gonna something else was coming out of me. Nothing else. I couldn't regurgitate anything else out of my system. I had lost so much weight. I had children to take care of. I had so many things in my mind. There was no mental health going on either. No psychologist, not someone pro bono, somebody tell me, make sure, let me know that I'm going to get through this. Yeah. I had my own ways to finding other resources, which was God. And that's how I made it through. But before things get worse, we can help these girls out finding, even if it's an ambulant mammogram bus, something to get it started. And that's where I want to be an advocate for. I want to be able to preach it out and let them know there's going to be, if it's not too many now, the little bit we have will work something out. There's sponsors. There's people waiting to know, hey, can I help someone get a mammogram? Hey, there is sponsors. You don't know who they are. but there's other people that do. So if you open your mouth, you can find the help. So
Get
I
help.
want to do it in Spanish. So you girls tell me what to say. I'm gonna pass it down.
Let's
Okay.
do it. Let's do it.
Love it. Yep.
And it's so true, like the whole family cultural component across all society. What I encountered a lot and what I see in my own family is that, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or not, we are leading our families, we're pillars of our families, we self-diagnose, we self-treat, and we just try to keep going. And part of what's so accepted, that's so accepted in the Latinx community too, is that we go to Mexico and we just go to the pharmacy and we order whatever we like. Veronica and I were talking about this at one of the conferences, and so there's this idea of when it comes to breast health, you don't be afraid to see an expert on it. Don't be afraid to have a conversation. We can help rule things out so that we can support you in a way that's consistent with your family, your cultura, and in your ways. But how do we change the conversation of don't put it off and don't self-treat, don't go to Mexico and get an antibiotic for what you think is a pinched nerve, when in reality you have a tumor in your breast. And how do we create a space where my community, our communities don't feel judged or feel safe to say, you know what, I just went to Tijuana and I just got this antibiotic. We want to know that because it gives us an opportunity to really give you a plan that we can do together and to connect you with those resources that Lydia was just talking about. And so I think we should do it. And I'm thankful for the example that Touch has, and whatever you need, we're willing to help también.
I love that because I think that you're right. It's not about putting down or calling out. It's about calling in, right? It's about giving examples of, this is what my mother did. This is what my auntie did, but this is what I'm doing that's different, and modeling how that looks, how successful care can look, and acknowledging the cultural barriers, acknowledging the earned medical mistrust, acknowledging where we are, but just saying this could all be different, and saying it from the voice of breasties. I think you're right, is something that has really resonated in the Black community for sure, and will absolutely, I believe, resonate. We need to see us in order to see that we can live and that we can do things differently than the way, it's Lydia, opposite to you. We were raised on food that wasn't healthy, canned foods and smoked and processed meats and all the things, right? And now we have to unlearn these and teach ourselves a different way, but we can do it. We can do hard things.
Yeah. And it's really just figuring out how to get that balance of kind of those tastes that we want, that heritage, to make it healthier for us, and just putting more thought into it, what we're eating and how we're treating our bodies. But I mean, just like the comparison though about the fear of cancer, it doesn't matter what color you are, what language you speak, that fear. And then also, I think the other similarity about how we try to be these badass women that just take care of everybody at our own expense, right? And then we're alone trying to raise children or do stuff for everybody else when we're sick and we don't have the support that we need. So I think that, the more we can support each other, the better. And, our cultural differences don't really matter at all. And except, I think that both of us have way differences from white women, and we're dying of breast cancer and they're not. And
We just happen to have a big percentage, and some women feel, no, we're in the Americas. That's the first thing. Oh, we're not in our homeland or home, whatever. And no, you live here. You're part of us. Right. If you're in the big melting pot, then be a part of it for real. Find the resources. Speak. If I didn't tell those two girls that walked in my store how worried I was about this nudge I had right next to my breast, they would have never known I was getting sick. They didn't know how far I was into this mess. They didn't know. When the girl figured out that I told her before this happened, blah, 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 this happened, she opened up her eyes and said, how dare you not have been to the doctor yet? I didn't know anything was going on. I had certain signs, but the lump wasn't there. And if I would have explained that to the GYN or even the regular what you call a family doctor, they could have sent me right away for mammogram. One of the mammograms I did have 2 years prior didn't show anything. And I had no markers at that time. I believe they had sent out to check my genes and see if I had anything, because my breasts were tender at that time. Something I wasn't going to tell anybody. Now I'm telling Facebook, hey, after a while, you lose all sense of dignity. Because you know what? I'm alive. You ain't going to shut me now. I'm back. I resuscitated from the dead, girl. I was a stage 4. And yes, the percentages are even smaller. The people who do pass away from stage 4, not a lot of people make it. No, by the grace of God, I'm here. A clinical trial is where I was at. They would lay me down on a nice bed, put me a nice warm blanket while they were putting that poison in my arm. But it was necessary. If not, I was going to fall apart. I'm here to finish raising my children, okay? And that's where I want the girls to know. Whether you're white, Puerto Rican, purple, black, Asian, whatever.
Amen.
Make sure you see something, don't ignore it. If it's on your skin, if it's on your mouth, your tongue, body parts, more private, go show the doctor. Don't wait. Skin cancer is out there everywhere nowadays. The ozone is falling apart. We need to take care of ourselves. The problem is that Latinos, we eat different things. We have different cultures. We do different things and our genes are a bit different. We have mixture. I have mixture of African, Puerto Rican, Taino, a couple things. You don't know what your ancestor had. Let's get checked. Even if it's just a marker, find a sponsor, write to someone. There's a lot of emails that you can search on the Google. Can you sponsor me a test? Can you check? I am scared. My family, my cousin, so-and-so, people close to me. See if someone can figure out how to help you. If you don't speak, nobody can hear you out. Sorry, that was it.
No, thank you, Lydia. And Vicky,
Just happy to be alive.
Yes, no, and we're happy that you're with us. And I just want to echo what you said, and which is importance of screening. Early detection makes a difference.
Yes.
With COVID, Latina women stop getting mammograms. We have to go back and get our mammograms. Make sure that you are talking, like Lydia said, every symptom. Don't be like my mom. She goes to the doctor and the doctor is like, Señora Sandoval, how are you doing today? Everything is good, doctor. I am good. And then she comes home and she's like, Mija, that doctor didn't do anything. And I'm like, Mom, but did you tell him? She's like, well, I didn't want to burden him. And I'm like, Mom, that's why he's a doctor, right?
It's all about relationships. You're right.
All about that, right? So Latinas who you're listening to us, please get your mammogram. Tell the doctors what is wrong. The more that we can say about our symptoms, the more that we can find about our family history, the better we're going to be.
And that goes for Black women too. I know Mo talks every day about how she's seeing worse cancers because of COVID. I can't even imagine what our world's going to look like in a year when all
I know Dr. Liz must be too. It's so bad on all of our message boards around the country. All the doctors are like, are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? I'm seeing more advanced disease. I haven't seen this one in 10 years. This one's more rare. Something is happening as a result of the stress on our bodies, as a result of something. that is making this an imperative issue for everybody. Veronica, you're absolutely right in that we got to return to screening, because they're starting to look at the data of what's going to happen as a result of, not doing that screening, but there's not enough research being done, and we need to really identify the demographics. And I think the last point I'll make is that the Latinx population lost some ground in the census by identifying as white and not as non-Black Hispanic, I think. And so making sure that we are counted is super, super important. Ricky, I just found out my father was half Puerto Rican. I did not know this. I know. I just found this out from my sister.
Wow, you didn't know that.
I'm still figuring out what that all means. And anyways, but making sure that we're counted in the census and in these studies that are going to be coming out, looking at COVID and looking at screening, we have to make sure that we are counted and represented in these studies.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Gracias.
This is like
Gracias.
epic. This is a moment for our community, and y'all, as sisters, you all just brought us in, and I can't tell you how much that means to us. And it gives us strength to continue the conversation. So I can't thank you enough for including us.
So we'll have more conversation. I actually reached out to Salud America, but I'm going to try to maybe write something for them and try to build awareness. But, I think your story of a trial, Lydia, and your bravery to do a trial is so amazing and so important and so critical to all of us. Anyone who does a trial to me is a hero. So a shero. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for all the support that you guys give me from Genentech, and even the moonshot work that we're trying to do together. So it's all such good stuff, and I'm so excited. I'm good, and I'm so happy to spend my 11th cancerversary with you guys. So thank you. And I'm gonna go have a dance party now.
All right.
Well, we hope this has been relatable and reliable and real. I wish I could say that in Spanish, but I'm not fluent. And so the doctor is in. Anybody want to translate that? You can feel free, because we want to talk to our sisters today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did send some flyers. I'm sure we'll have some probably questions if you girls check on the comments. There might be some Latinas, some of my sister Latinas on my Facebook saw the flyer. I was so excited. I'm like, look at me. I'm going to be talking with all these girls.
Yes.
You're glowing. You're glowing.
So excited.
Yes.
Thank
And
you,
we'll shout
ladies,
it
for
out in
accepting me.
Spanish. Yeah, por todos los que están escuchando ahorita, sí se puede. Estamos aquí, somos doctores, pero somos parte de la comunidad y estamos aquí para ayudarte, para caminar contigo. Y sí se puede, juntos sí se puede. So,
Sí se
gracias.
puede. Amén.
Yeah. Gracias.
Amen.
Amen. Gracias.
Amen.
All right, you guys. Breasty love.
Thank you.
Breasty
Don't
love.
forget,
Breasty
schedule
love.
the mammogram, girls.
Yes.
That's right.
Get that screening.
That's a
Saves
yes.
lives.
Yes.
Saves lives.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Blessings.
Bye.
Blessings.